Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Nurizuddin Noh, and today I'm going to present my paper, A Managerial Perspective on the Impacts of Implementation of Minimum Wage in Malaysia. Malaysia aspires to become a developed high-income nation in the near future. Because of the development, Malaysia confronts a variety of complexity on the labour market, including increasingly sophisticated professions with low pay relative to output. According to Kavirayasu, labour market factors play a significant role in determining salaries in Malaysia. The labour market in Malaysia is characterized by the presence of many low-skilled workers and an excessive reliance on imported unskilled labourers. While wages are compensation for labourers who perform physically demanding tasks, the amount of which payments is often determined daily or in accordance with the quantity of work completed. As a result, Malaysia's low wage growth, in contrast to its rising productivity, demonstrates an unproductive labour market and wage tyranny, particularly for low-paid workers. According to the minimum wage policy established by the ILO, an employer should pay their employees the minimum wage to cover their daily living expenses and those who are of their families. In a way, the minimum wage should also reflect the nation's present economic and social climate. Payments are made on daily, hourly, or monthly basis. According to common legislation, the minimum wage must be paid to all employees when they are hired. It refers to the compensation rate that is set higher than the present salary rate from an economic standpoint. A minimum wage policy that is appropriate for each nation's economic structure is adopted by about 90% of nations worldwide. Some of them began implementing a minimum wage policy as early as in the 1990s. Australia, for instance, established a minimum wage regulation as early as 1904, whereas the United States just did so in 1938. Even developing nations like South Korea and Sri Lanka, which are in the third world, have embraced this minimum wage legislation. In the case of Malaysia, the government considered social and economic factors while determining the minimum wage, including gross monthly household income, cost of living, and employment involvement. With more money in workers' hands to spend on product and services, even with some inflationary effects, it can be argued that the higher salary will have a net beneficial effect on the economy because it will better buffer against modest job losses. There is a growing empirical support for the idea that minimum wage legislation has an impact on employment among workers covered by the laws as well as the rate of economic development in a nation, both positively and negatively. Based on Table 1, the recovery in the labour market remained uneven in the first half of 2021. Following the implementation of PKP 3.0 to curb increase in new cases of COVID-19, restrictions targeted on economic activity and social to reduce the spread of pandemics has weakened aggregate demand for labour. Although the number of employments recorded growth of 1.1% or 151,790 employment, but an increase such is lower than labour force growth of 1.6%. By that is, the unemployment rate remains high. For example, 4.8% or 757,200 people compared to 4.3% in the same period the previous year. The COVID-19 pandemic and the implementation of various movement control orders throughout Malaysia has adversely affected the people and businesses, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises. Some sectors could not operate normally as a result of movement, restriction, and changes in user behavior, thus affecting employment and economic resilience. As shown in the table 2, the Department of Statistics Malaysia reported per capita income on 2020 decreased by 6.5% to 43,475 ringgit from 46,450 ringgit in 2019. At the same time, average salaries and wages decreased by 9% from 3,224 in 2019 to 2,933 in 2020. The number of unemployed also increased by 39.9% or 508,200 people in 2019 to 711,000 people by 2020. Decline, which is shown in the statistic, has been causing an economic contraction by 2020. So Malaysia's minimum wage is determined by the protection given to the lowest income workers. These are often workers in socially excluded groups such as young people and women. Without direct government intervention, they may lack the bargaining power to demand higher wages. Some would argue that raising the minimum wage will hurt low-wage workers because it is an artificial value imposed by the government, not determined by the market dynamics. This is because people with low skills and experience are less productive. As a result, higher cost structures postpone hiring these employees at lower rates until they gain more experience. However, the wage policy in Malaysia should be based on the domestic context. In 2013, the minimum wage was first set at 900 per month for Peninsular Malaysia and 800 ringgit for East Malaysia. The rate has increased gradually over the years. About a decade later, it is expected to reach 1,500 a month effective from the 1st of May 2022. This seems to be a fair rate given by the ILO reports that the average worldwide minimum wage for developing and emerging countries is about 67% of the median wage. At the end of 2019, before the COVID-19 pandemic, according to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, the median income in Malaysia was at 2,442 ringgit with the minimum wage set at 1,200 ringgit. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has reduced the median income to 2,206 ringgit, the minimum salary of 1,500, representing around 68%, which is in line with the average for the world, according to the DOSM's data. So the median pay is anticipated to surpass 2019 level by 2024, with the economy projected to experience a robust recovery of more than 5.5% in 2022. At some point, this will equal a minimum pay that is 60% of the median wage. So research on the implementation of the previous wage levels in Malaysia shows that it tends to increase labor productivity, function as a driver, and reduce employee turnover. Long-term research has really demonstrated that it lowers unemployment and raises labor participation rates. According to research, the earlier hikes in 2016 did not significantly reduce the need for workers. It has also been suggested that increasing the minimum wage would increase inflationary pressure. Most worker incomes in metropolitan areas in Malaysia, however, are close to the suggested amount of 1,500 ringgit. So there is not much more precise pressure in this area. According to the existing strategy, it is expected that these new rates will contribute to the disparity between earning and costs in urban and rural areas. Additionally, Malaysian employment is not much influenced by inflation. In fact, research in Malaysia demonstrates that the labor market in Malaysia has a propensity to adhere to the wage efficiency theory, which states that greater expenses or wages will be offset by higher productivity and employee retention. However, there is a need to investigate alternatives to the minimum wage in the future, given that the possibility that it could imperil SME that are unable to offer higher compensation. Currently, company owners play a part in eradicating poverty through the application of the minimum wage law. However, a new strategy utilizing social assistance program for low-wage workers will enable all taxpayers to share the financial burdens. B40 household will gain from partial coverage of housing costs, healthcare costs, and childcare costs, among other things. Malaysia has long been caught in the middle income trap. This situation is due to the country's economic policy, which has always attempted to compete as an export hub by utilizing low labor costs. The present goal of Malaysia is to end this cycle and attain high revenue. The question of whether Malaysia needs a sizable percentage of the workforce to be a highly trained is being currently discussed. Instead of employing high-skilled workers, Malaysia depends too heavily on the participation of low-skilled individuals. The brain drain issue, which have gifted where many gifted and highly educated Malaysians leave the nation, is one of the causes. For a country to achieve a status of a developed country, it must be driven by technology, the capacity of economic sectors, strong consumer purchasing power of goods and services, and the development of highly qualified and productive employment participation. In addition to upholding minimum wage laws, it is desirable to implement policies that help workers become more productive, which in turn promotes the growth of the Malaysian economy. Additionally, today's economy of the country still heavily relies on the use of cheap labor. Due to its low labor costs, Malaysia is unquestionably still competitive, but it still lacks a capital-based, technical, and highly skilled human capital-based economy. Malaysia also employs the possibility of permitting the private sectors to progressively modify the labor to capital mix of the manufacturing. As labor income rises, the ratio of labor capital will increase, boosting consumer spending power and bringing down the unemployment rate, which will support Malaysia's economic growth. Additionally, Malaysia uses the price control mechanism and petroleum subsidy to control the cost of living, making Malaysian workers less expensive to hire due to the low cost of living. So conclusion, salaries are primary means of communication between employers and employees in a working relationship. They also represent the most significant aspects of daily living. With the implementation of the latest minimum wage exercise in Malaysia, it presents both sides of the arguments. Among the positive arguments is that with this pay increase, more people who have been previously unemployed will be enticed to start working. When more people start working because of higher wages, incentive, the unemployment rate will decline. Another positive benefit derived from this exercise is that the rise in household income due to the growth in salaries will improve consumer spending power. The amount of extreme poverty in the nation will be able to decline because of this condition. Less reliance on government aid, including subsidies, medical care, and other services, is the outcome of this growth in capacity. The government will be able to indirectly reduce costs for tax-paying citizens. Furthermore, the rise in pay they receive will feed the economic cycle once more. With an increase in their earnings, spending on food, childcare, and other family expenses will also rise. In addition to increasing tax income, this has a direct positive impact on the local economy, including businesses like restaurants and shopping. So in a nutshell, given that low-income households have larger marginal propensity to consume, a rise in employee income is anticipated to lead to increased consumer spending and more vigor in the economy. The minimum wage policy will help to advance a better and more equitable wage structure, as well as higher value-added economic activity and high-skill employment. Other productivity improving initiatives, such as offering training to supplement staff abilities, enhancing the standard of education, and facilitating investment in automation and innovative technology, are used in conjunction with the policy to further its goal. The objectives of the minimum wage policy are anticipated to be accomplished with the aid of institutional and governmental support, oversight, and proper enforcement. So thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.